Hi, I'm John Paul and a really warm welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a video on earning potential. A lot of people write in about the kind of uncertainty of the earning potential of being a therapist. So I just wanted to give a kind of financial example and then explain each of the elements of it just to give hopefully a bit more certainty around that for people. I mean, generally the thing is everybody's self-employed, people have different needs and wants as far as earning potential within therapy. So I can see why the information isn't necessarily out there. Generally, people don't talk a lot about what they earn. Certainly, therapists don't talk that much about what they earn. But I can see why, if you're looking to change career and generally wanting to come into the career, why it's so important to know how much you could potentially earn. As I say, also coming from a kind of higher paid career and changing career into therapy, you know, is it going to be something that can sustain people's lifestyles in the way that they want? So, as I say, what I'm going to do is just use an example, kind of formula, I suppose, to work out a particular amount and then look at each of the four elements of that. So if you're looking at, for example, taking home about £75,000 a year, what you would need to bring in as far as turnover from your practice in order to take that home would be around £100,000 a year. That gap between £75,000 and £100,000, of course, taking into account things like tax, national insurance. There are also other costs, and I'm going to come on to those and mention those in a minute as well. But going back to that number, if you want to bring in £100,000 a year, what you would need to do as far as the practice that you have would be seeing 25 clients per week at £85 an hour for each client, or the therapy hour, times 47 weeks a year, so be working 47 weeks a year. So just giving some observations on each of those four: the number of clients, the hourly rate, the number of weeks working a year, and then turnover. Starting with the number of clients, 25 clients. I would say that 25 clients is a busy practice and course can take a while to build up to for people. I'm going to do a part 2 of this video, which is about how to bring in clients. Somebody wrote and said, are there enough clients out there and how do you build a practice? So I'm going to do a part 2 of this video with some ideas on that. But 25 clients, as I say, is absolutely possible. I know of people that would see more clients than that. I know people who see around that number. I know also a proportion of therapists who would say that 25 clients would be, say, too much for them. They'd be more comfortable at seeing 18 or something clients a week. Some people would say they wouldn't see any more than 12. But of course, you know, it's people's different needs, people's different wants, people's sensitivities, tolerances, those kind of things, the client group that people work for as well. These will all be factors here. But for me, 25 would be absolutely possible, sustainable. Just a few things to say about that number. In order to see 25 clients a week, you would need to have a couple more clients than that, because of course you have people on holidays, illnesses, unfortunately sometimes, work commitments, so you would need a couple more clients than 25. Also, it's not just working 25 hours a week there. As I'm sure you can imagine, there are a number of other hours that would need to be spent as well around the business. Just to give an example very briefly of a few of those, I mean, we have ongoing continuing professional development, which is a requirement of being accredited. Some people aren't accredited or registered, but I think you probably want to be, I want to be, and that probably takes up another hour or two a week as far as the ongoing professional development, but very important from a personal and professional development point of view. You're going to need supervision of those clients. Certainly when people start, UKCP's requirement, for example, they do a ratio. So if you're seeing 25 clients a week, their requirement is that you have X number of hours supervision as well. So that is something that is additional to the 25 hours. I would see my supervisor every other week and also have peer supervision, which is individual and group with other therapists too. So that probably adds another hour or two a week. Of course, general administration around the business. So recording client hours, which is necessary for income self-assessment, checking whether payments have been made, chasing up payments potentially. All those things probably add another hour or two a week on. And as far as note taking, I don't have additional note taking hours because I tend to make very brief notes during sessions with clients, but other therapists will be writing out notes after sessions. And of course, if you're doing that for 25 clients, that can be take some time as well. So just to bear in mind, as well as the 25 hours, of course, there are other hours which, as I say, I'm sure you would expect with running your own business and running a practice. Of course, on top of any other things that you might want to be doing, so media work in order to, just because you enjoy it, or in order to develop the business as well, anything else that's required as far as marketing, developing your website, etc. So that's the 25 clients number. Busy, but to me, sustainable over time. The next number, the £85 an hour. I don't know if you have a therapist and what you would say about that number. It's difficult, choosing these numbers. There are people locally here who would charge £45 an hour, and other people locally who would charge roughly this figure. If you go 20 minutes, half an hour into London, the practice of 6 therapists that I've seen, everybody within that charges between £120 and £150 an hour, so significantly more than £85. When I first started seeing a therapist, that's about 15 or 20 years ago, I paid £90 an hour. With the career that I was doing, that was fine. Aviva, AXA, the insurance companies will reimburse up to, I think, that amount. Bupa, though, for example, will not go any more than £60 an hour. So it's difficult as far as pricing something. As I say, some therapists are going to be charging 35, some 350. It depends on the therapist. It depends on the environment and the market. It depends on what you want to do as a therapist and how much you want to charge. Traditionally, I suppose, when people have chosen an amount that they would charge, they would always be concerned to look at what other local therapists would be charging in the area, because clients are, of course, choosing between those therapists on a face-to-face, if they're coming face-to-face. The thing is, if you build voice, visibility, those kind of things, profile, you can certainly sustain a higher rate, I think. Also, online therapy now means it's not just local people who you will be, in inverted commas, marketing to. Of course, there is a national market and potentially international as well, subject to kind of insurance requirements and particular licensing requirements in different countries. But that's really opened up things as far as the potential for finding clients. As I said, in part 2, I'm going to look at that in a bit more detail. Moving on to the number of weeks worked a year, so 47 weeks. That would be taking into account, say, 5 weeks holiday a year. I chose that because when I was employed, I'm sure it was roughly 25 working days a year that people started on. In my experience, that is certainly sustainable, seeing 25 clients and having 5 weeks holiday a year. I have to say that after doing it for around over 10 years now, I do take more holiday than that. I roughly take a holiday every 6 weeks now, so it probably works out to be about 8 weeks of holiday a year that I take. Of course, if you want to take more than 5 weeks holiday as far as this calculation, then you would just need to charge slightly higher on an hourly rate or see 1 or 2 more clients. But all this, of course, is very personality dependent. Is going to be dependent on the therapist and their sensitivities and tolerance and their life circumstances as well. And then looking at the fourth figure, so that kind of 75 and £100,000, just to talk a little bit about some of the costs that are involved in running a private practice. Of course, there's tax, there's national insurance. The next one that a lot of therapists are going to have that would be a significant cost would be room rent. At the moment, because there's a lot of online therapy, that may have lessened the need for people to take rooms in places a lot of clients are happy with, comfortable with now, seeing their therapist online, which of course gets rid of the need for room rent. But if you do need to rent a room, if you'd prefer to do that, if you would prefer to see clients face to face, then you will need to factor in the cost of renting space. But you can just ask locally where there is space available, what they would charge for that, and factor that into. Personally, I don't have any room rent because I see clients at home. Some therapists would rather not have clients around the home, but I really like it. It works really well for me, and therefore I don't have that cost. But usually when somebody's starting out, that is something that they will need to factor in and can be quite a significant cost. As well as that, I mentioned supervision, so that would be a cost roughly £60 an hour. Supervision is in my experience, so that will need to be a cost that's factored in as well. Continuing professional development is more time. I mentioned it in the context of over and above the 25 hours of client work a week. Also, there's a cost to continuing professional development, but that can be really, really varied as well. It could be a couple of £100 a year, or it could be thousands of pounds depending on what you're doing. Again, very personality dependent and also interest dependent, but certainly something from a personal and professional point of view that's really worth investing in. Another cost that would come to mind would be membership of the accrediting bodies, the kind of regulating bodies, and also being on the directories, which is a great way for clients to find you. Membership of the regulating bodies. You only have to be a member. We don't have to be a member of any of them, but I would prefer to be. I'm a member of both UKCP and BACP. UKCP charge about £250 a year, slightly below that. BACP a bit less, but to be a member of both of them brings me up towards about £500 a year. If you're looking at the directories, as I say, very helpful from the point of view of clients finding you to be on the directories. Counselling directory, for example, which is a very popular one, charge about £180 a year. I'm also on BCP's Find a Therapist directory, which is probably a similar amount. So if you combine membership of the regulating bodies with being a member of being on the directories as well, you can probably get up towards £1,000 a year on that. Other potential substantial costs could be maintaining a website, hundreds of pounds a year for somebody to host that. Of course, you may have maintenance of it. And then, of course, there's the potentially investing in the business as well. Certainly when you're starting out, as far as investing in the marketing, I mean, that can be as much as connecting and networking with other people, which doesn't really have a cost often. But I do think it's a good idea also to have a budget to be investing into the business for development. I, for example, have a project each year and a budget for a project each year. And one year that was developing the website. Then it was also the book the next year, so publishing that, paying for an editor, paying for a typesetter, used the budget that year. I also did an online course, I produced an online course, so there was the editing of the videos for that. So I do think it's a good idea to also allocate a budget for developing the business as well. So some observations there. I mean, I would say generally, as far as earning potential, I'm going to link the recent BACP article on portfolio careers for therapists, because I just think it's really interesting. There's a lot of people in there. They've done some sort of case studies of therapists who they run a private practice for part of the time and then also combine it with various other things. I mean, some of the interviews, the conversations that I've done on this channel with, say, Lula Bentz or Robert Cummings or Richard Nichols. Lou has her own course that she's developed now, so she'll have an income from that too. Richard has an income from his Patreon for his podcast, and actually most of his clients will come from that, as he said. Robert also has another job as well as seeing his private clients. So as far as earning potential, it's very difficult to say, because we don't know whether you're going to invent the next Calm app as a multi-billion-pound business, or whether you're somebody that's very happy to earn what would be the national average wage in order to run the practice that you have and have all the other things outside of work that you do. So I don't know which of those you are, which of those you'll be. But I do think it's what I'm going to talk about in the next video. The part 2 of this, as I say, is looking at potential sources of income, potential clients as well, how to build a practice, just because I think it would have been helpful for me to know and interesting for me to know personally at the beginning, what the possibilities and opportunities are. Generally, as ever, if you have any comments on any of this, if you would like me to add anything or clarify anything or provide some more detail, then do just comment below this video or write to me separately, and I will absolutely do that. I'll either respond to the comment below or do a separate video on whatever it is that you would like to hear about, any questions that you might have. As ever, if you enjoy the video, then please give it a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do. If you'd like to share it and think somebody else would find it helpful, then please do that as well. As I said, I'll be producing part 2 of the video talking about building a private practice and how you might be able to do that. In the meantime, thank you for watching and do take care.